How you doing?
Hey guys,
Welcome to the
good. How
show.
are you?
We're great.
Good.
Having fun, reading through the information, looking at the new Sam Altman IO acquisition. Do you have a take on the new device? What do you want to see in the world of AI hardware?
I don't know, to be honest. Let's see when like things start shipping and like how things like evolve.
Yeah.
It's been.
Have you had a chance to
I
play
mean,
with
like
any of the previous
it's great to see
devices?
like I've again like in a
Yeah,
like driver's seat and like on
totally.
the news like doing interviews and so on. So I think like it's like I had a break from for like whatever like 4 years or like so. It's been a while.
It's more
Yeah,
like he's
John
been in
John called out
stealth.
it was like
Yeah,
very strategic
yeah,
to
yeah.
go have him do a big interview at Stripe Sessions and then immediately the next week,
Yeah.
come in with this massive announcement. But I'm excited to see. I think every technology
Call that a coincidence in my parts.
Yeah, yeah. But I think every technology enthusiast will benefit from him
Yeah,
taking
totally.
a real crack at AI.
What else in the news this week? It's been kind of an informal AI week over here at TBPN between Microsoft Build, Google I/O, OpenAI I/O,
Linear agents.
Linear Agents, and Anthropic Claude 4 dropping. What's been most interesting to you? What are you most excited to leverage?
Uh, pretty bad week for me for like following the news. It's like finished up moving, so I've actually been like relatively like off news and like I think like it's on the docket for like long weekend to like start catching up more on the
Mm-hmm.
on like all the keynotes and so on. But I don't know. It's good stuff like having like, more agents or like especially coding agents and like different like players like coming to the space. So
Yeah,
I think like it'll be like interesting to see like over the next couple of weeks kind of like what like performs like
yeah,
how well and also like what kind of like in like user experiences are gonna be there
yeah,
because I think like that's kind of like the bit that we're like at Linear like now following much more as we're like also trying to like work with like different players and like integrate stuff into Linear is like what are like the patterns of like
hmm
usage that will happen with this.
yeah. What's more important?
What's
Just vague definitions around user experience patterns for agents versus standards like MCP and more technical advances.
Yeah, I mean, like those are like very two different things. I think like
Hmm.
like MCP and like open standards, like that's like personally, I'm like very like pro, of course, as an engineer.
Yeah,
But it's been something like I think like we kind of like lost in like last decade of like the big platforms owning more and more on their like own, like trying to like hoard everything. But like now things are pretty much like being pushed out in the open, and people are like companies are like almost like forced to cooperate in the, like the new world. There's just so much demand,
yeah.
and it's been interesting to see from our side too, as like large companies like jumping very early and like so like a whole space is kind of like pushing all the companies to like act fast. Let's see how much is like hot air, like what like will come out of it. But I think like overall, it's like push for openness is good. But
How
then
have you
on like
so
yeah.
yeah, so for Linear's agents product, how do you evaluate how open is the product? If somebody's building an agent, can they build an integration with Linear by themselves, or are you guys really kind of doing your own internal testing to kind of qualify potential partners there?
Yeah, we're kind of like looking more on the promotional side, I would say. Like
hmm
we believe in like open APIs and like trying to like have people access, but then I don't like the when it comes to like security and these kind of things, it like comes more on like what do you like promote.
sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at the
so
same
I
time,
don't,
like if I get a really amazing agent that just can puppeteer my mouse and keyboard, you can't really do anything about that. Maybe you throw up a CAPTCHA, but agents are going to be able to solve those pretty quickly. And so, at a certain point, you have to think like there's a reason why you have an API. There's a reason why you have an MCP server. There's a reason why you have maybe an agent integration. But are these like temporary steps in your mind, or do you think that there's real durable value to an agent, like a standardization, something that you build in house, some sort of protocol, or standardizing against things versus just like MCP? I kept coming back to like, can't the LLMs, if they're really so smart, can't they just use websites? But what's your take on that trend?
yeah, it probably comes to like down to like the user experience that you want to like
Mm-hmm.
offer. So like controlling a computer or like VM or whatever, like that's the kind of like the ultimate like band-aid to like everything. Like it allows to do everything, but it's still like it's not purpose built. But and like MCP to a degree is like a little bit like similar. It's just like a way to re request response like calls and get the information in and like share that. But then it's more about, I think like in our mind is like what is the experience like inside the product that like you can offer that maybe is like specific to that product, and how does that work? Like today, like our implementation is like, somewhat like rudimentary that we would expect. Like agents look like regular users, but it's not very exciting to see the progress of the agent when they're like posting new comments in the
Yeah.
thread. That's a little bit of a hack that you kind of like have to like live without, while we still like see what's actually like required and like what can we like build to like better like support like the agent developers, like what kind of like experience to like give them. Of course, like we're like looking at this from the lens of like linear, of course, like running the company and like building the product. But it's also like it's interesting to see how the like where does the invocation of like agents happen? Like, is it like your CLI? Is it like a text editor? Is there like some kind of like web tool or like the desktop app? Of course, like for us, it's like it's pretty natural, like being like close to like where you work, so like integrating into that workflow. And I think like that's why a lot of like these like smaller companies, especially like, are pretty excited to like build in linear because they're already using linear themselves.
What agent gets the heaviest usage internally at Linear today?
I think it's been like a couple of the coding agents, but those were like the first ones to, to the market.
No, I mean not even. I mean specifically like your team at Linear,
Yeah.
like coding
Yeah.
agents or
Well, I kind of like mentioning names because like, of course, we don't have a horse in the race. We're just we're just the interface for this.
I love horse races, and I love having horses in races.
yeah.
Pat, pick a horse.
But no.
But like it's changing like every week. So like you said, like there's like a lot of like new agents that like came out this week from Google and like OpenAI and so on. So like this kind of like it'll be like interesting to see like how those like play out. And we're like looking for like working with like all of them, of course. But I think like beyond, I think like currently the focus is a lot on just coding agents. Um, like it's natural because there's a lot of like value to be created over there. But I think like we'll in the next couple of months we'll start seeing much more like non-coding agents like augmenting like in alongside with the coding agent. So you might have a task where you have a like a feature flagging like agent, coding agent, and I don't know, like who knows, a marketing agent like helping you out, like write the changelog blog posts or and so
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Are there any other AI features that you're implementing that feel like Windsurf or Cursor for project management, like something that like lives in linear alongside, but it's not that asynchronous? Because in coding, we're seeing a lot of like there's synchronous AI and there's asynchronous AI, and these two different patterns, and it feels like the market's bifurcating, but no investors want to admit that because they want to say it's going to be winner take all. But in fact, we're seeing two different paradigms kind of emerge, or maybe even three different paradigms emerge. What are you seeing on the project management side?
Yeah, that's I think like the agents are roughly, especially in our case, are tied to issues or tasks, and that's kind of like the interface for them. Outside that, we're of course like linear is not only like issue tracking tool, it's like for project management, like organizing like your work at the company level, not only like an individual level. So and that's where kind of like have like separate work stream of we're building our own like AI tooling around that. How can we augment the project managers and like the product leaders to like do their work better? And that you could like imagine looking a little bit more like a Claude or Cursor, like alongside your linear data. But like with that, it's going to be interesting to see like how we can start like introducing like the external like agents or like MCPs as like part of that. that, of course, like the issues is that's like the first step because it's like much more natural.
What's your team's approach to testing new, for example, coding agents, right? It's in many ways like the linear approach from my perspective is, you know, really thoughtful, ideally long-term planning around building, you know, beautiful products and taking a calm approach to doing this and in that way, you know, enabling other people to maybe have more calm, effective product development. But at the same time, like testing new tools, they can be super effective, but testing new tools can also be super distracting. You know, we don't do a ton of engineering on TBPN. We actually do a surprising amount, kind of like back office stuff to kind of automate production. But I can imagine an environment where you have, you know, call it 50 engineers and on any given day, one of them can send a message into Slack, hey guys, you got to check this out. It's like amazing, blah, blah, blah. And maybe they just got like a couple good results and it's actually not worth directing everyone's energy to, but at the same time, you want to stay at the edge. But do you have a philosophy or kind of an internal ethos around testing new tools?
Not really. I think like mostly comes from people themselves. We're not like enforcing like certain tools. We're of course encouraging couple of tools where we can, you know, like maintain like security and those kind of things. We're like mature company at this point, so like we need to look after like our customers' information, and like a lot of like also lives inside Linear, so you know we need to like look after stuff. But when it comes to like new tools, like the team is like looking at the news the same way we are and like trying out stuff, and I think it's a little bit more. So you put out like Linear's way, it's a little bit more calm, and I think like that also shows on the tool adoption and so on. Like you're like excited like to try out stuff, but like, you know, you take it with a grain of salt instead of like going on Twitter and like blasting like we replaced like all of our team like with AI. I mean, like that's one way to do it, but like, that's definitely not us. Nothing against that either, but yeah.
The Klarna method.
Not naming any names.
I said it. I respect it. It's good marketing. But it's not for everyone.
Yeah, I don't know, like that's being like overall, like when it comes to developing AI tools, like we started like when like everyone else started like a couple of years back when like the first GPTs like came out, and like tried to do stuff and like, you know, tried to build a chatbot and so on, like, but I think like very early on, like we realized like, well, you get to like whatever 60-70%, but like then it's like falls apart, the experience, and like it's not, and then it's really like hard to figure out like what's actually the path to get to like the 95% where you want to be.
This is the Apple problem. You Linear and Apple have similar sort of like desires for perfection, right? And generative AI is in many ways completely imperfect, right? And unreliable. So that's an interesting challenge.
Yeah, but we built a few things. We shipped a few things. We didn't make maybe like the biggest fuss about it. We're not the AI powered like issue tracking software raising like gazillion like dollars. But now
raising a lot from customers though.
Yeah, and you know, I mean, like in the end, like they want to get their work done, and like, do they want to like buy hype or do they want to like buy product? Maybe today, like you want to like buy more like AI, and that's really what we're seeing, like a lot of like demand for AI solutions, and like now we're heavily investing in that. And that kind of like we did a course correction over like the last like roughly 6 months ago, when I think like the tools has got so much better. Like for me personally, I was like on parental leave and like when the DeepSeek like came out and like just trying like the thinking mode was just like a light bulb moment. Like I think
interesting. A
little bit background on that. I think it's just because of like Linear's philosophy is like try to build really like, you know, snappy, like purposeful tools. Like we always like chase the millisecond and like try to get something like really fast. And when it comes to like LLMs, like you have like inherent latency to it. So it just felt like, how do we bind this like weight into the product that's instant? And I think like now with the new like like thinking modes and so on, like that has changed the like user like what people expect, like that
Totally.
paradigm, and now we can like build towards that, and like people expect it to take a little bit like more time, and there are also like more UI patterns to support that, but like you get a lot of value out of it.
Totally. Well, yeah, check out some of Google's launches from earlier this week. What was it? They were doing 3,000 tokens in like half a second.
With the diffusion models. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Anyways, this was awesome. Congratulations on the launch this week, and come back on again soon.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Thank
Cheers.
you so much.
Later, Jori.
Talk to you soon.